Well, we are back this week with the second of 4 videos that comprise a look back over my 7 years leading First Church. Last week we looked at the various ways we serve our community and the larger church through ministries of hospitality, hosting conferences, welcoming support groups and other community organizations, and of course Anchor Lancaster, reaching out to those in need among us. This week we will focus on trends in membership and attendance. First Church has an older membership, no shock there, which is in line with the aging demographics of the United Methodist Church and other historic denominations. According to the U.S. Census Bureau's 2019 American Community Survey, about 17% of the U.S. population is aged 65 or older, but seniors account for 33% of church members. Within the United Methodist Church, the numbers are even higher. A Pew Religious Landscape survey from 2014 found that nearly 55% of United Methodists are aged 60 or older. Another factor contributing to our aging membership is that Lancaster County is one of the retirement capitals of the United States. It has been ranked by U.S. News and World Report as one of the top 5 best places to retire in the country. It's sometimes even been number 1 or number 3, alongside places like Fort Myers, Florida, and Asheville, North Carolina. And the county is home to quite a number of retirement communities, as you know. Our traditional worship style tends to attract older persons, and we regularly see new member classes populated by newer county residents who are in their 70s or even beyond. This older demographic in our congregation is therefore not necessarily the worry that it might be in other localities. In fact, we have a great opportunity to reach out and serve this population, which is overrepresented in our region. To that end, we have worked on developing relationships with places like Willow Valley, Brethren Village, and other local retirement communities to allow our pastoral staff to visit, give lectures, preach, etc., so as to become known to the people there. Overall, the membership of our church has declined from more than 1,000 in 2015 to just below 900 now. While some of this decline is due to people departing over theology or politics, most is simply due to attrition. We typically lose 20 to 30 members each year through death. And during the last few years, especially because of COVID, we did not see as many newer members taking up their fallen staffs. Another contributing factor is the general decline in Christian commitment and identity in our society, especially among the young. A Pew Research study released last December found that nearly 30% of U.S. adults now identify as atheist, agnostic, or simply answer, quote, nothing in particular when asked about religious affiliation. That's 10 full points higher than just 10 years before. So negative perceptions of Christianity generally, and of churches in particular, have grown in recent years, and we therefore face more negative cultural headwinds, you might say, than in previous decades. This does not absolve us, however, from our own shortcomings in evangelism and outreach. Most United Methodists, our folks included, tend to be shy about sharing our faith or even inviting people to come to worship. And this is something about which we must become more intentional, more faithful. An important part of how we framed the position of associate pastor last year when Laura Sandberg joined our staff was to include outreach and evangelism as top priorities. Well, we've already seen some great outreach events, including our newly reestablished Easter egg hunt after several years being canceled because of COVID. We had that in Musser Park, and more than 250 neighborhood children participated. We are connecting with families and children. It's more challenging than in the past, but still critical, and we see encouraging signs like the egg hunt, a renewed Vacation Bible School, and connections we're making with families who have children in our Discovery Corner preschool. Well, on the subject of worship attendance, this is much more difficult to track and interpret. From 2010 to 2015, when I arrived, the congregation saw its average attendance in Sunday worship drop from nearly 600 people per week to about 390. Attendance then became more stable, though it continued to slip, falling to an average of 324 in 2019. Now, part of this decline was due to the conflict that the congregation had endured for several years. Some can also be attributed, as with age demographics, to larger cultural trends. The 2017 Barna Trends Report showed that overall U.S. church attendance had declined by 12% between 2006 and 2016. But it's the COVID pandemic experience, I think, that caused us to see new patterns of attendance and engagement coming to the fore. Although I'm convinced that the pandemic simply accelerated trends that were already underway. Interesting, early in my ministry, average attendance was sort of the gold standard to measure the health and direction of a congregation. Finances, missional engagement, and program participation all tracked along with Sunday worship. But in my previous church, in those years that the Barna study talks about, I was puzzled by a declining average attendance, and yet while also seeing positive growth in those other areas. So we did a detailed study, and it revealed that people were, on average, simply attending less often, not disengaging. The World War II and Korea generation, who dutifully attended every week, except when on vacation, were departing our ranks. And in their place came folks who only attended maybe twice a month. In addition, we found that people often engaged with the church in ways other than Sunday worship. Youth, for example, who might attend youth meetings faithfully, but not very often come Sunday morning. Others regarded midweek Bible study as all that they needed that week. Interestingly, here at First Church, our largest single attended service or event each year has been our Easter Eve celebration, combining orchestral music and live art, which began in 2016. Well, all these changing patterns have been happening nationally. They've been attributed to a number of things: affluence and travel, children's activities, especially Sunday sports, the disappearance of cultural guilt, the growth of the so-called self-directed spirituality movement. But a huge piece has also been the growth of online options. First Church did not have an online worship ministry until we were forced to create one during the pandemic. And it has opened up a whole new world of engagement by other means than Sunday morning presence. We now have, as regular viewers, former members in other states, people who are shut in at home that formerly could not attend in person, but now can reconnect, and also people who are virtual newcomers. Even today, even as we seem as though we've come out of the pandemic for the most part, we often see the raw numbers, just the raw numbers of views, exceeding our in-person attendance. And when weighted to estimate how many people per view, sometimes those viewers double the number that are here in person. Combining in-person and online numbers, our attendance in 2020 rose to 354, and in 2021 to 489. Well, online ministry is something of a double-edged sword. It allows people to engage who otherwise could not come in person, and that's great. But it also sometimes gives people an excuse to not bother coming in person, who otherwise could. However, there's no doubt that online and virtual technology will be around permanently, and this is profoundly affecting the life of the church in America. There are also, of course, other ways to communicate the gospel of Jesus using new online technology, and some of these may be worthy of exploration. Things like blogging, videos, podcasts. Oh, and here we are, making a video. Well, thanks for tuning in. We'll return next week with a look at what has been happening in recent years here at First Church in the areas of finances and property. God bless you, and see you then.